Okay. What's up, peoples? Back with the lives. I've been out of these for a few weeks, but we are back, and we're going to start it off with a good one tonight. So, moving forward for some of my Strongman live streams, we're going to talk some fundamental things because, I'm trying to put out a lot of content, and I think I skip over some things that are really fundamental that even people who are very far down the line need to either have a reminder of or take several steps back and correct. So we're going to talk breathing and bracing tonight. So what is this about? Basically, to produce power, we need to deliver oxygen to our muscles. This is what's going to allow us to literally press with strength, but also do it over and over and over again, right? So we have a couple different things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the aerobic system and the anaerobic system. It literally just means with oxygen and without oxygen. So even though a lot of strongman is anaerobic strength, right, we need to have a good level of aerobic health and fitness, which we will train for, but also use proper techniques in the moment in order to maximize our success. So let's start with just kind of a fundamental. What is bracing, right? So bracing is the ability to tense up your body in a way that's conducive to explode and to press with strength, right? So when we're talking about bracing, it's not just tensing up. It is more like electrifying the system so it's ready to explode, right? This is like spring loading, right? We want to get this thing nice and tight so it's ready to provide a lot of power. Now, this all starts with our core, right? And so a lot of times when people talk about training their core or training their midsection, they just think about like abs, right? So just doing crunches or sit-ups. While that does train some muscles of the core, you really need to think about your core as this 360-degree band, not just in your midsection, but really it is kind of everything between your shoulders and your hips. So what does that mean? It just means that we have the muscles that connect our legs to our torso. We have the muscles that are in our abdominal wall that allow us to either flex or extend or just hold tight in position. And we also have these muscles on our sides that allow us to rotate, okay? So you have to really think about everything in this midsection. Now, a good brace, this is something I got wrong for a long time. What's up, Joseph? What's up, brother? Is think about like if somebody was going to punch you as hard as they could in the midsection, that's the type of brace that we want, right? So it's not, just like pressing our abs out as hard as we can. We actually want to pull everything in nice and tight and hold and reinforce. So, if you're good and trained at this, you should be able to turn it on immediately. But I'm going to show you a few things in this live of like how you can mentally engage and turn it on right away, right? This is going to be a like big time regression, but also just a good activator for a lot of people. So again, thinking 360, the very first thing that we want to do, I'm going right to the floor, guys, are these dead bugs, okay? So I'll show you like what we're looking to do. So, a lot of people will do something like a crunch, and they'll crunch here and this, and like you might feel your abs, but again, 360. What we want to do to really feel this core engagement is something like a dead bug, which is bringing our knees up over our hips and sticking our arms up overhead. So what I'm looking to do here is get that same brace through my core, where as if somebody was going to come down and punch on me, or imagine if somebody was going to come and stand on you. How would you want to be strong in your midsection? We'll brace there, pull in, tuck, and then we'll also actually want to push our low back down into the ground. So we're having this, full, again, we keep saying 360. We have this effect in here. And now this is one of the most simple moves you can do, but if you're somebody that has a hard time figuring out how it's supposed to feel when you're doing an effective brace, I just like to program, like for my clients, like a few sets of these of like 20 seconds just to like hold in place and make a conscious mind muscle connection like to their midsection while they are here. And now let's level this up one more, how we can actually get it into our obliques. And this comes into breathing now. So in order to turn on our obliques to activate them, a lot of times this is just finding out ways how to mentally engage in here. So very simple technique, same thing. We're going to take in a big deep breath in through our nose and breathe out through our mouth as if we're trying to fog up a window. So we'll give it a right? And what I want you to try and do is think about breathing into your belly, down to your obliques, and then maintaining that pressure and tension while you breathe out, okay? So dead bug here, knees over hips, arms over shoulders. I can already feel this now, but if you have a hard time here, just lift your shoulders up a little bit. Important. Don't just crank your head. Lift through your shoulders and then begin that breathing. So this is just a good activation drill. And I can do that right away, but this is something, again, if you are somebody who is, doesn't have a lot of awareness or mind muscle connection, that's how we start turning that on. And we start sending this down into our obliques. Yeah, dead bugs. So it's really good. This is something that works for like all levels, whether you are literally level 1 or level 100, just a little bit of like ab and core training to turn that on is really useful. Yeah, sure. There's all sorts of progressions from a dead bug. So you can do one where you're moving opposite sides. So you move like your right arm and your left leg out and then back in and then switch. So there's really a lot of levels to that, but we're not going to really get into all that today. So now that we're talking about breath, we can use our breath to do this. Let's go ahead and start with an easy one, moving events, right? So when we're talking strongman, we have different types of lifts. And I think the easiest one to kind of start activating like your breath and core working together are moving events. I talk about this on the yoke a lot. The yoke is probably the lift that you need the most brace because it's a heavy weight under load. So what do we not want to happen? We do not want the yoke to start crumpling us over, right? So we need this good tall posture. We need a strong core to prevent that rounding from happening. So we want to do, in this situation, some short, quick, rapid fire breaths. So you can do this if you're watching right now or try the next time you go to warm up. Think about breathing into your belly really deep and forcefully. Okay, so you can try that again. I'm just going to do one just to, illustrate here. Okay, but it doesn't really benefit us to breathe slowly because we're going to be in a high pressure situation, even if it's just training, especially when it's competition. So let's try to do that exact same thing, but punch it real quick, right? So that same deep breath in and out, we now want to make it really punchier. So we'll go. And because I have trained this, like every inhale, exhale, I'm staying tight and packed. I can feel it. Like my core is activating because I have a trained ability to do that. But if we start, on any lift, we should always have a good brace where we're tight and connected with the weight. If we do that right on our yoke pickup, we have our hips under us, we have our feet centered, our arms and back are tight with this, and we're going to use that to automatically turn on kind of everything head to toe. So we'll stand up, start moving and keeping everything tight around us. And what's really cool about this is that this is a cue to synchro your feet with it, right? Because if you're doing a moving event, you want to move quickly. And then when we get into things like sandbag carries, Husafel carries, where there's actually weight on your chest, you're going to be physically incapable of taking in a big, deep breath in and out. So this is how we get this rapid oxygenation to our muscles so that we can keep performing, get those muscles to have a little bit of endurance and conditioning and move quickly. So that rapid fire breath is a really cool technique for carries, whether they're farmers or yoke or sandbags. But then what do we do on our static lifts, right? So static can be a little bit different. Now, just kind of the general concept of bracing, we always want to be tight and connected to the chain or to the implement that we're lifting. So let's take a deadlift, for example, right? This is a little easier to figure out from here. So when we do a deadlift, we're going to hinge over, get tight with the bar. So we're going to pull the slack out of the bar so we're tight to the weight. We don't want it to clink or, jerk up under. We want to be smooth and strong through that pull where it's breaking off the floor. And use that to tighten up our back, our lats, our chest, our legs, our hips, our hamstrings, and everything else. So this is another one where it kind of automatically, when you do it right, tightens up everything. But we're not going to use that rapid fire breath. Instead, we're going to do one of two things. We're either going to do what's called the Valsalva maneuver, which is taking in a big, deep breath and holding, or my personal favorite on a deadlift or something from the floor is to take that deep breath in and strongly push as I'm moving with the weight. So, for me, I like to set up here. When again, and really breathe through it. So you can either hold your breath with that breath in, or you can breathe out on the way up, or option 3 is hold your breath and then breathe through a sticking point, right? So that's a good technique, especially on deadlifts. Let's say you're holding and your sticking point is usually right above the knees. You want to start pulling up, up, up. And it gives you just like another mental cue to like fire and like kick in to a little bit of overdrive. Now, holding your brace is very important. This is something I actually learned relatively recently on the log press, right? So let's cover like some presses. When we're doing, like I referred to, sandbag carries or Husafel, where anything's like really big and heavy on your chest, you're not going to be physically able to take in a really deep breath in and out. So this is a mistake that I made for years and years and years. This is kind of why I'm doing this now, is because I want to get the word out and help you guys. Don't take a breath in your front rack, okay? So let me tell you what's going to happen here is, let's say you have a perfect technical clean, right? You get up here, you get in position, we roll up. Or here, I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit, but I just want you to like understand what's happening here, right? So, let's say I get on my front rack and I go, so just look at how my elbows are going to drop, in position here. So let's then roll up, and every little inch, every little millimeter counts really, really big when we're trying to move either very heavy weight or just lighter weight over and over and over again. Everything's always about efficiency. So one thing we want to do on the log press is take a big, huge breath in when it's either on our lap or on the way up in our clean. So let's imagine here, I would probably breathe out on the way up. As I come down, punch and go. So not only is this going to keep us stronger in our front rack, right, but it's going to allow us to feel stable, to go at a faster pace, faster tempo, and get more reps in, So think about it. If you were to roll it up to your front rack, take a big breath in every 2 to 3 seconds, right? If you get 4 reps in a 60-second event, that is 8 seconds wasted. That could potentially, just by eliminating that, give you a full extra rep, which, as we know, really, really makes a big difference. So I would say, yeah, absolutely, just press right away, because we want that really strong core presence. So this is something I invite you to try it out for yourself. And part of this is getting the right synchronization and rhythm down. So if you are somebody that usually, rolls up and then turns your feet out, you're just going to need to either do that faster, or you need to put your feet in the press position right away, right? Because everybody's clean is usually pretty strong. For most people, you're going to be able to clean more than you can press. Actually, it's interestingly enough, a lot of women tend to be able to press more than they can clean. And on the reverse end, a lot of guys tend to be able to clean more than they can press. That's not always true, but that's kind of most of the time. So for us men, think about setting your feet already in that press position, or change it at your lap so you don't have to waste any other time. You can just dip and go, okay? So I really invite you to try this out for yourself. Now, when we're doing these things, we're going to be using a belt. So some people would coach and cue you to breathe out into your belt. But I want you to think of it, as something that's reinforcing, pulling in tight. So if you're going to try to put on a belt, imagine if it was real tight, how you'd want to take that big breath out, pull everything in, and then cinch in. And like, you should be kind of in this like shortened voice, because you're like going to be holding tight, right? So that belt is reinforcement to keep everything packed in nice and tight. So don't necessarily breathe out against the belt. Just use that as reinforcement to keep everything nice and tight. What that does is actually prevent you from spilling out and like letting your abdominal wall release, and it keeps you in nice and tight. And again, we're thinking 360 bracing. So it's stuff that's going around the whole way. It protects your back, protects your core, protects your, obliques, all that fun stuff. Okay. Now, what's also really important to do is, you need to actually warm up your breath and your brace. So it's not as simple as just kind of applying this to your top lifts. You need to be like opening up your lungs and your airways in a proper warm-up. So this is why it's important to get your heart rate up, and to, sometimes either break a sweat and or like get your breathing going to a little like heightened pace. So I really recommend, and I have a lot of my clients do things where they're, starting with just like, even if it's like 5 minutes of like bike work or rower or something like that, that is turning on the ability to do these things we're talking about, where we're taking in a deep breath and pushing it, setting it all the way down into our core, so we can turn it on from our first warm-up lift all the way up to our top sets. So, don't skip on these things like these cardio warm-ups, or just like a warm-up that will elevate your heart rate, because not only does it get your body physically loose and like ready to move like an athlete, but it gives you the ability to just further tighten up your brace. Now, on that note, what kinds of cardio can we do outside of our normal strength training to improve this? There are a couple of different ways, and this is something I've had a mindset shift on recently, and I've implemented a lot more zone 2 cardio. Okay, so I'll be talking a lot more about this coming up, but what is zone 2? Zone 2 by definition is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. And what it does is it trains your body's aerobic capacity to drive oxygen into your body and recover between sets, but also over, days and weeks. It's basically enhancing your body's recovery ability. So I think a lot of people jump right into high intensity interval training because it's like a little sexier, but that's kind of only training like top end stuff. I think a lot of your like high intensity work should be coming from like comp prep specific stuff, such as sandbag carries and farmers walks and sleds. And we really should be spending a lot more time like working in this like lower aerobic zone, because it just gives us a better ability to breathe efficiently, which will give us a better ability to connect to our core and our brace. So zone 2 is really good. This is something like, really, if you have the time, try to build up to 60 or 90 minutes or more a week. Zone 2 is if you don't have a heart rate monitor, this is something where you could talk, but you couldn't sing. Or it's a pace where you can breathe through your nose, but keeping it out of your mouth. Like, what do I mean breathe through your nose? Literally just the whole time. So that's kind of a self-regulation thing. It's a tactic that's going to keep you in the right level so that it's not frying your nervous system, and it's getting you the delivery of cardio that you need without going into like higher zones that start to break down your muscle and tax your nervous system a little bit. So other things that we can throw in to do with this is maybe do some intervals. I'm not saying don't do high intensity stuff, but we need to be smart and measured and calculated with it. So one really good drill is to do things such as, a hard bike sprint, even if it's like 5 calories, and then a core exercise. So one thing that I like to do a lot personally is a hard bike sprint. 5 calories, that's short. When you do that, that's 10 seconds really fast. And then I'll do a suitcase carry, a one-side kettlebell carry here to work, my anti-rotation under fatigue, right? It's just something that makes me focus a little bit harder on bracing. So suitcase carry, it's just a one-arm farmer's carry to the side. Very simple. We're just looking not to, we're looking to balance ourselves and not, turn over or lean one way or the other. We're keeping really good posture and focusing even when we're probably breathing, make sure we're walking nice and tall. This is, again, reinforcing this 360 band. A suitcase carry is going to do a lot of good for your obliques and your low back here. Awesome movement. If you have a farmer's walk coming up in competition, one of the best things you can do going into like a 12-week prep is to do some suitcase carries just to give you the ability to correct your core and posture if one thing goes a little squirrely or side to side whenever it's time to actually carry separate implements. So the last kind of part of this is, let me get a sip of water here. All right, the last part of this is breath work. Okay, so, breath work is a mindfulness tool that we can do in different ways. So there's things like Wim Hof breathing, which is pretty much the same thing as what we talked about with the yoke. It is a series of intentional inhale, exhales. It's more complicated than that, but at its core, that's basically what it is. So you're training your body to deliver oxygen in and out. And what this actually does, if you have it as part of your regular practice, is decrease your resting heart rate and increase your HRV, your heart rate variability, which will allow you to, again, recover faster and perform better, okay? When your HRV is higher, that's basically the ability for your state to shift, right? So when we need to be at a very, very high level of intensity and adrenaline in a strongman competition, and then our event is over, and we need to be relaxed and chill before it's time to turn back up, breath work and things like zone 2 cardio literally give you the ability to shift your state more rapidly. So over time, again, it's about recovering faster in between events, but from day to day, week to week, and over the long term. So you have things like Wim Hof, there are breath holds. This is not really a breath work presentation, but it is a just essential part of this, of being a good strongman, is being able to master your breath and your breathing. A lot of people are just completely going about this unintentionally, and it's a little thing that will separate you from the rest of the pack. So one other thing that is very important about your breathing and your bracing, it's all tied together, is your ability to center your focus, right? It's very easy to get caught up in adrenaline and nerves when we are in competition, or maybe we're just in the gym trying to go for a big weight or big PR. But this is a mindfulness tactic and technique by returning to our breath and returning to our brace, our connection. We get out of our head and into our body and allow it to perform. So this is why breath work is a really powerful tool. This syncs up with things like meditation. There's all sorts of techniques that you can use, but if you've ever taken a yoga class, if you're like me and you're stiff and muscle bound and they're telling you to breathe through it, that's intentional. It's trying to get you out of your head, out of you thinking, God, this sucks. God, I can't do it. Or, geez, this is so difficult. And instead, just taking you into something that is going to be beneficial to your full body and help you perform, train, and recover better. So, this isn't just about physical performance. It's also about putting your focus where it should be, and more importantly, taking it away from where it should not be. So when we're talking about breathing, bracing, right? We want to be in control and in strong connection with our entire body and we can do that with our breath. So whether you are a beginner or somebody that's more advanced, it's a skill that you should be practicing all the time. You know, a lot of people that are at the very advanced levels do this automatically. I could do this on a deadlift without even thinking about it, done deal. I can do this on a yoke without even thinking about it, no problem. Most carries, do it without thinking about it. But overall, I have a lot less practice with log pressing, circus dumbbell. So I need to be currently doing a lot more of this to help me get out of my head and focus on the important things. So I hope this is helpful. I'm going to kind of just stick around here for another minute or so. If anybody's got any questions, I'm always happy to field them. But I'm going to be doing a lot more specifically on this topic, and I'm back kind of doing my lives and videos and content. So for those of you that are here, I appreciate you guys. Had some decent attendance tonight. Pretty happy with that. But it's really just an essential skill in strongman that I think a lot of people miss out on. And even me, I've been doing this for a long time. I learned some new things recently about this that made an immediate difference. So that's all it is, man. You know, that's the reason why I do this stuff, is because I have learned so much. I've made errors. I've overcome them. And I just am kind of put it out there for you guys to learn and do better faster than I did. You know, that's it. So cool, guys. If you got any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer. Fire away if you got anything. That's it. But if not, we're gonna call it here shortly. So, wish I could see who was on here. I could call you out directly. I know Toe the Foe is here, but wherever else, I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're about 10 days out from OSG. Feeling good. Feeling ready to rock. So, well, that's it, guys. I appreciate you joining me. As always, check out my free community, clubstrongman.com. Have a good night. Stay strong.